Good afternoon. We will continue to study about the interrogative adverb how from the ninth example. How often do you smile? The interrogative adverb how specifies the definition of the adverb of frequency often. That specifies the definition of the intransitive verb smile. In this example, the interrogative adverb how describes the other adverb, which is one of the frequency, which is one of the adverbs for revealing the frequency. The two adverbs, how and often, form a phrase of the adverb often. And this phrase of the adverb often describes the definition of the intransitive verb smile. The ninth example that the interrogative adverb how is applied is this. How do you smile often? In this class, the interrogative adverb how describes the definition of the intransitive verb smile directly. But in this ninth example, the interrogative adverb how describes the definition of the other adverb often. So we can say that the adverb how describes the definition of the intransitive verb in the indirect way. That's the biggest difference between the two clauses. And we can also see that the adverb often that reveals the frequency of the action described by the intransitive verb smile describes the definition of the intransitive verb smile in the direct way. So we can understand, we can discern the premise that the speaker sets that the subject actualized the definition of the intransitive verb smile already. The subject actualized the action of smiling primarily, and then we will talk about the way or the condition that the subject actualizing the action. What about this clause? How often do you smile? Means that the speaker is interested in the frequency of the action described by the intransitive verb smile. So as we understand that one of the adverb never is included in the range of the adverb of frequency, we can discern that the speaker considers that the subject do not actualize the action of smiling, not at all. There can be a huge difference between the two clauses. These clauses, this ninth example and the 10th example, are stated with the same pool of words, but the arrangement is different in both clauses. From the different arrangement of the words, of the same words, we can understand that the speaker sets the different premises for each clause. Let's study one by one while understanding that the interrogative adverb how has the inclusive definition from the way for the subject to actualize the definition of the verb to the condition of the subject after or while the subject actualizes the definition of the verb of the clause. Sorry, the first example is this. How are you? The speaker applies the interrogative adverb how to specify the definition of the be verb or to describe the existence of the subject as the listeners with the way that the subject exists by and the condition that the subject exists in. This interrogative clause is stated in the first type of clause constituted with the interrogative adverb how, the intransitive verb are, and the subject you. One of the possible responses from the first example, how are you, is this. I'm standing here on foot. This is about the way that the subject exists. I am standing here on foot. The speaker applies the existence of the speaker as the subject by a way for the subject to exist with the phrase of the preposition on foot. So we can understand that the phrase of the preposition on foot corresponds with the interrogative adverb how. So the phrase of the preposition on foot to describe a way that the subject relies on to exist corresponds with the interrogative adverb how in the interrogative clause. The second conference is the other possible response from the question how are you, and this is more common and familiar to us. It's about a condition of the subject. The definition of the be verb to describe the existence of the speaker as the subject with the trait as an intransitive verb is changed because of the trait as the adverb to describe the condition of the subject with the description by the adjective happy. So I admit that the adjective happy corresponds with the interrogative adverb how in the first example, how are you? Until this example, we have found very many correspondence between the interrogative adverb and the phrase of an adverb in the response. But we find that the correspondence between an adverb and an adjective is this possible? Yes, because the definition of the be verb includes the trait of an adverb. We can change rather than changing the be verb, we found the similarity between the combination of the general verb exist and the preposition as. This combination, this phrase of the intransitive verb reveals that the definition of the be verb includes the trait of an adverb. So the trait of the adverb that the be verb contains and the trait of the adjective happy correspond with the interrogative adverb how in the interrogative clause. The basic definition that the be verb describes is based on the existence of the subject. So we admit that the definition of the intransitive verb exist has a role of describing or corresponding the basic definition of the be verb, and the preposition as is able to be understood in a way that the be verb, the definition of the be verb is deepened to describe the condition of the subject based on the premise that the subject exists already. So we can split this trait of the be verb. The trait of the intransitive verb exists, and the trait of the adverb as, which is one of the prepositions, to understand this correspondence between the adjective happy and the interrogative adverb how. The second example that the interrogative adverb how is applied is this. How do you like the sweet potato?